Can you guys hear me in the back? Okay, cool. I see a lot of Guy Harvey out there. Pretty awesome. Nice job, everyone. It's really tough to sum up Ron in a few paragraphs or a few sentences, so I'm going to do my best, but again, I'd encourage all of you to air it out when we get back to Terry's house and to tell all of those stories, because there's a lot of them. Ron was a father, a husband, an uncle, and a grandfather. He was a fisherman, a biker, an animal whisperer, a builder, a collector, a consummate friend, and a willing partner in crime. He was gentle, fun, and adventurous. He had a kind approach to life and friendships and a willingness to help others out that made him so likable. There's one aspect of Ron's life that we can't ignore, something that I realized probably when I was a kid, and that's Ron is really a pirate at heart. He's a good guy pirate, but a pirate nonetheless. And deep in his being, he embodied the spirit of a sword-swinging, rum-drinking master of the ocean. He knew water and boats. He knew where to find the best honey holes to fish and the out-of-the-way piers that would have the most action. I remember maybe 10 years ago, I was on a fishing trip with Ron, and we ended up under some bridge at 2 or 3 in the morning, and him and I are standing in the water knee-deep with our rods cast, and a school of rays, it must have been like 100, just kind of like going over our feet under the moonlight, and it was a magical moment. It was the kind of thing that only Ron could get you into. My brother told me a story yesterday about when him and Ron were out fishing on his flat-bottom boat, and in the middle of nowhere, the engine stopped working, no surprises. And then the fog started rolling in, and Ron somehow put the boat back together with nothing more than a screwdriver. Over the course of his life, Ron always had a special connection to nature and animals. His love of dogs was apparent and consistent through his life, from all of the Great Danes named Sheba to his ultra-loyal golden retrievers and the small pride of domesticated and semi-feral cats that called his property home. He only needed to give his dogs a single glance to effectively communicate with them, and he was as loyal to them as they were to him. His connections to animals extend beyond cats and dogs alone, having a pet grouper that he caught and brought home to his custom saltwater tank on Queen Street. And the fish was known to sort of come to the top and greet Ron every time he walked in the room. Very unusual, I would say. Like a pirate, Ron occasionally made off with some treasure that might not have been his. He was known for occasionally stealing cars from his father Vito and then crashing them. There were stories of bygone 57 Chevys and Chevy Impala Super Sports that had met an early demise at the hands of an unlicensed underage Ron. All of these stories, of course, probably slightly exaggerated, but nonetheless still hilarious after a few beers or cocktails with our family. And like a pirate, Ron worked for himself. Definitely not the corporate 9-to-5 type. He dabbled in everything. Ron could fix boats, he could tow boats, he could refine oil, he could sell houses, he could grow trees. He had a dozen sideline hustles going at any given time. And at the center of this entrepreneurial spirit was always a desire to help his friends and partners and to be a good person and to do the right thing. Ron was the kind of guy who would give you his last sip of Budweiser in the desert and the Guy Harvey shirt off his back. His pirate sensibilities extended to his keen fashion sense. If it didn't have a fish on it, Ron probably wasn't going to wear it. The last and only time I can remember him wearing a suit was at my wedding in 2019. You'll see a picture of it at the end. He looked handsome, but maybe a little uncomfortable. His uniform of choice was always the Guy Harvey shirt, shorts, huge white sneakers, and a generous smile. Even when he traveled to Washington for an ad hoc family reunion to meet my son, he still committed to his uniform, and despite the chilly temperatures of Tacoma, leaving Washington, I kind of remember Ron saying something like, "I can never go back there, it's too cold." If he only had a jacket. His physical transformation as a pirate was continually evolving, first as a handsome black-bearded young man. Eventually, his problematic knees made him walk like he had a peg leg, and then when he lost his eye, he really committed to the role. He didn't have a parrot on his shoulder, but there was a time when he had an iguana named Iggy that was known to nestle up to him. Like most pirates, Ron could have a few drinks. There were Rob Roys made in the coffee pot, followed by karaoke singing from Jessica. There were margaritas made by the pitcher using Crystal Light. That's a secret recipe. There were cold early beers during fishing trips and after hot days. When I was around 14 or 15, Ron taught me the proper technique on how to order a beer at the bar. The trick is always to order two, one for the thirst and then one to enjoy. When Ron and Terry came out to San Francisco, maybe 10 years ago, we collectively drank a bottle of tequila and ate 100 oysters. Terry and I, we passed out pretty early, but Ron stayed up, and he stayed up talking to my new girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, for hours, and getting to know her, being warm and welcoming, being fun. It was just the kind of guy that Ron was, and so welcoming of everyone. He could spin some wonderful stories, often fish stories, that always had us entertained. For 25 years, he told me about a fish called a snook. I'm sure some of you are actively looking for those all the time. It was something that supposedly he and my dad knew pretty well. Although on my 47 or 42 years on the earth, I never saw him catch one. But I will say that eventually he landed one, and it might have been off season, and he might have snuck it back to the house and went back for more, so well deserved. I'm glad he got his fish. He told us stories of Goliath grouper that were caught using a tow hook in a truck. He told us stories of high seas and approaching stores and bandits in boats. There were stories of him bow hunting when he was a kid, accidentally stumbling upon a sleeping buck. Does that sound right, Pop? I think that's right. Yep. There was a story of Ron hunting on the Rockefellers' property in New York and then being brought home by a game warden. There were stories of Ron getting stuck in the mud outside of his house, which somehow cured his bad knees. So, like a pirate, Ron knew everyone. His friends, as you can look around, are diverse and eclectic: salty fishermen, hardened bikers, skilled craftsmen, creative artists, all kinds of interesting people from every walk of life. He would talk to anyone, anywhere. He was gentle, he was generous with his time and his spirit. Unlike most pirates I've heard of, Ron did love eggplant parm, he loved a good Cuban sandwich, and he liked oysters of all kinds. He liked comedies like Uncle Buck, Summer Rental, and My Cousin Vinny. He introduced me to Bob Marley and Tom Petty and Eric Clapton, and we had a shared love of Steely Dan. He loved to smile, and he loved to make others smile. Most importantly, Ron was loyal to his crew. He loved his wife Terry, and their daughter Jessica, and their grandson Jensen. He loved all of his friends. I'm sure he loves all of you. He was a pirate, and an adventurer, and an entrepreneur, and a proud father and grandfather. He led a life that was interesting and weird and vibrant and fun and really as one of a kind as Ron is. Like a pirate, we'll leave Ron to rest in the ocean, a place that he loved, and a place that will constantly remind us of his spirit and life. So let's send him off with a pirate's proper prayer. May your anchor be tight, your cork be loose, your rum be spiced, and your compass be true. Thanks.